Times are changing for many major cable networks. The rise of new media companies and other digital distractions means that competition for viewers is fiercer than ever, particularly when it comes to young people. Fortunately, Tom Ascheim is up for the challenge. He has managed to turn around legacy brands like Nickelodeon Viacom, Newsweek, Sesame Workshop, and most recently Freeform, formerly known as ABC Family. How does he do it? Like any good manager, he's not afraid to make big moves, even when everything appears to be going well. Take his decision to rebrand ABC Family into Freeform. Why shake up such a well-known brand at a time when it was #1 in the women 18 to 49 demographic for the second year in a row? He knew that to grow the audience, he needed to better understand not only the fans, but the entire demographic. This was not Tom's first time taking a legacy brand and updating it for a new audience. After helping Nickelodeon move into the digital age, he became Chief Strategy Officer at Sesame Workshop. There, he combined digital, in-school, and at-home learning solutions to transform the learning experience for preschoolers across the country. He also served as CEO at Newsweek, where he brought the magazine and website into the modern era. Tom graduated from Yale College with a BA in American Studies in 1985 and received an MBA from the Yale School of Management in 1990. He currently serves on the advisory board of the Yale Center for Customer Insights. He joins us with Karey Burke, EVP of Programming and Development at Freeform. Karey previously served as Executive Vice President of Primetime Series at NBC and recently partnered with director Todd Holland to create Dark Toy Entertainment. Karey graduated magna cum laude and Phi Beta Kappa from UCLA with a degree in Communication Studies. Please help me welcoming them to SOM.
Thank you, Hillary. That was the most professional introduction I think I've ever gotten. And this sort of weird and embarrassing, but nice. We have you did nicely. I have an array of beverage products. We'll see what works better. We're a little tired. There was a red eye involved in getting here, so somewhere between sugar and caffeine. We'll see what happens. We're going to talk a little while. I'm going to go first. Karey's going to pop in the middle, then I'll pop in at the end. Ask questions along the way. Ask questions at the end. We may fall asleep. You may fall asleep. We'll try not to make it too painful for anybody. It's television. It shouldn't be too awful. We thought it would be interesting. The Freeform is a channel that some of you guys knew as ABC Family, and we relaunched it last year, and we thought it might just be interesting and the sort of, because of the customer insights orientation, we thought we would do it sort of as a marketing presentation, sort of why did we do all this, and how did it happen, and what did it mean, and I don't know, it'll take us 25 minutes or so to get through that, and then we can see what else you guys want to talk about. Okay? How's the food? It's not good. I'm a little jealous, but if it looks really good, we may come pluck some from your chairs as we go. Okay. So as Hillary said, when you change something that's working, you have to sometimes answer a lot of questions. I've answered a lot of questions like, what the hell were you thinking about? Things were good, and they were. A couple of years ago, we had a lot of nice statistics. We were #1 in our ratings in social, which is hugely important for everyone, but particularly for young people. And this last metric, the #1 must-keep cable network, is a sort of marketing survey question of if you could only have one channel, which one would you want? And those were all good measures of success, so why would you change? And the answer was really is sort of historical. ABC Family began actually as a channel called the Family Network, Pat Robertson, a whole long time ago. It was really oriented around family programming and religious programming. It was bought by Fox and turned into Fox Family, and it became somewhere between sort of kids and family. Disney bought it 15 years ago or so, I'm not quite sure, something like that, and turned it into ABC Family. The strategy at the time was to take reruns of ABC Primetime and put them on cable, which didn't work because the DVR showed up and they became less valuable in that way, and because they actually didn't have the rights and it was a big sort of internal brouhaha. So they needed a strategy at that thing called ABC Family, and what showed up in the competitive market of television at the time was the WB, which had served primarily women 18 to 34. Some of you may have watched some of their shows way back when. Was kind of going out of business, and there was a gap in the market, and so they began trying to find shows that would work well for this audience. And Secret Life of the American Teenager showed up, and eventually something called Pretty Little Liars showed up, which is still our #1 show. And that's what built this business for ABC Family, becoming the #1 network with women 18 to 34, which was great. But there was this weird disharmony between kind of who we served, what the nature of the programming was, and the label, right? And we call these well, we talk about this audience a lot, and we sort of say informally it's between your first kiss and your first kid. We hope it's not the same day, and sometimes that happens. But generally speaking, there's some span of years, right? And it's that time when everybody loves their family, or most of us love our family, but you're less involved with your family when you're not primarily a child or primarily a parent. So the reason to change was to try to change some attitude about our brand. Because when we did some survey data, we would say, so talk to us. And for people who watched us, those are the teal people. There's a whole bunch of adjectives, but how do you feel about us? They're a very nice set of adjectives. This is an index chart, right? So anything over 100 is above average. So lots of over 100s. When you talk to the non-viewers, and we were number one in our, as we said, with our core audience, but that still left about 3/4 of the country we weren't reaching on a monthly basis. That's a big market, and everybody's got to grow. And you want to grow, you need to keep your current customers happy, and you need to try to get some new people in the door. We were worried that our name was keeping people out of the door, and what the white bar charts show. And so we over-index on family-friendly and wholesome. Not wholly shocking if your name was ABC Family, and everything else was pretty lousy. Made for Me was really lousy, and it's sort of a primary metric of, do I feel like this is my kind of place? And the answer was no. And so we said, well, that seems stupid. Let's change the name. And so we did. January 12th last year, we were very tired. We relaunched the network, and we wanted to see some progress in that stuff I just showed you a minute ago. And we've seen I think we did this about 8 months in. The stuff on the orange to the right, is sort of the legacy marks for ABC Family. Those have all gone down. That's what we were looking for. Family Friendly went down too, but we kind of took it off because it sounded sounded a little nasty, but I think that's gone down the most. That's great. And the teal numbers have all gone up, right? All that nice stuff, modern, cool, unique. So it feels like early in its life, we've had some success. It's a lot more to go in terms of changing attitude. We also measure it competitively relative to our competitive set. How do we do? Pretty well. This is people 18 to 34 measuring audiences against each of these networks. So people who already watch these channels, not just the people who watch our channel. And number 2 to HBO will take all year, right? That's a pretty good place to be in the television landscape. So happy, good progress, but lots to go, and the TV world's getting weird, and we'll talk about that in a sec. So you guys all taken marketing courses at this point, right? I think, right? Some of you, I'm sure, are spending a lot of time on marketing. We thought a lot about, so what does it take to make a brand? And I just thought I'd take you briefly through our architecture for 1 sec. You guys have talked about marketing positioning. This is a key concept you guys have talked about, right? Positioning is that secret promise we make about our brand to ourselves. Is a thing that informs everything we do, the programming and the brand itself. So what is inside our positioning? A lot of times when people approach young adults, they think about it as sort of a wayward time. You know, it's angsty, or it's a time when your failure to launch. There's a lot of stuff that is sort of associated with being a young adult that can seem negative and frankly impotent, and we don't really see the audience that way, and they don't see themselves that way, which is funny to tell all of you, right? Because a lot of you are in this age demographic, but it's a time of incredible potential. And you remember potential energy from high school, right? This idea that the atom has, the ability to virtually destroy our world if we unleash all the power therein, or the rock on top of the hill, whatever, physics, chemistry, I don't remember anymore. But potential energy is a really interesting concept, and young people are really full of potential energy. It's the way we think about them, and it's the way we think about our programming and its marriage therein. And so our position is we believe in the power of possibility. It underlies our sense of who they are, and it underlies what we think our stories can do to unleash people's sense of imagination, delight, the rest. So those are good words. How do we make that feel real? Sometimes it's easier to show a tape. So this first piece is just sort of it's meant to capture the emotion of what our brand, I think, feels like relative to that position. And why don't we take a look? There's 4 filters that Karey and I were at a ad sales event yesterday in New York, and we had done a bunch of research with the audience, and there were 4 filters that we talked about when we think about young people. And one was the audience talks a lot about valuing the struggle, that they see the world as harder than it used to be, and they want media and storytelling to reflect that. They don't want everything to be just hard, but there's a certain sense of reality in what it means to be alive in the world today. And if stories don't reflect that reality in a way that feels authentic, they just feel stupid. And I think, so we sort of want to lean into that. At the same time, we want to have a sense that people can find their way through. And that's what this piece of tape should try to show.
All right, you ready for this?
We're just getting started.
Bring it on.
We don't fear the uncertain. We thrive in it. We live in the magic of the everyday. We welcome the weird. We are seekers. We are doers. We're all in for the journey.
This is our chance to shake things up.
The struggle.
I'm not who you think I am!
The victory. We tell stories about the power of possibility. We are Freeform.
That's a mood piece, right? It doesn't really say anything incredibly specific, but hopefully you get a sense of the affect of the channel and the programming that's in it. But one of the other pieces of architecture you talk about when you're doing marketing, as you all know, is your sort of how do you express your brand? What are the ways you talk about yourself? And taglines are usually one of the key things that people talk about. So I referenced these 4 filters. One of the filters that was very important to the audience, which seems almost axiomatic at this point, is they don't want to be boxed in, this idea that they're intersectional, that they bring to any party all the parts of themselves, and they don't really want to. Someone said, yes, one of the experts was talking yesterday, and we're talking about sort of seminal pieces of entertainment that speak to generations, and so the Breakfast Club was Gen X, right? Everybody is typecast, and you kind of are at the breakfast table, and if you're a geek, you're not going to be a jock, and that's just kind of the way the world works. And for this age group, a more seminal show is Glee, right? People bring a different sense of having all different and fluid pieces all come together, and they're a little bit more supportive of each other. So if that's how the audience feels about themselves, they don't want to be typecast, they don't want to be tagged. It feels a little weird for us to have one fixed tagline. It feels like our brand would be out of touch with what the audience is saying is important to them. So we tried this notion of turning a tagline on its head. This is something we're going to launch in January next year at the sort of anniversary of our rebrand, but this is kind of a quick 1-minute preview of what it feels like to have an untagline.
What's that warlock doing here?
Let's show everyone what a group of girls can do.
He clearly has more anus than anyone else out there.
The Higgy is a dance that no one should do.
Make the bounce.
You're still really good at this.
I've had a lot of practice.
It's important to be contextual, right, in the modern age. So much of what happens in social media is that everybody, right, takes text, turns it into subtext, right? The memification of our world is a really big part of sort of how communications work these days, and I think we need to reflect that back. And so the goal here is to have, every time we talk, that we talk either in context or in character, and it's not a sort of monolithic brand coming down and trying to, you know, brand is literally, right, that thing you used to put on cattle. It's sort of we lay claim to the ground. This is an attempt to be a little more personal, a little bit more informal. We'll see how it works. I think it'll be fun. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Karey, even though she's been introduced. So when you do television's an interesting business, right? In lots of different ways. And television brand is certainly branding in your sense of the audience. But the most essential part of a television network are the television shows, right? It's the thing that we go to watch for. Karey, I arrived just about 3 years ago. It was clear we needed to make some changes, as Hillary pointed out, and the people who were in our shop. Karey was one of my first key new folks. Karey had a great long career at NBC where she worked on shows like The West Wing and Friends, some of them you may have heard, and then went off to be a producer and has lived on both sides of kind of the buying part of our business and the making part of our business. And we spent a lot of time together sort of trying to figure out how to build Freeform. What is the structure in which we put it and what is the content that rolls inside? And I think she's just going to give you a quick overview of some of the shows so it kind of rounds out the sense of our brand, because product is really the key part of what we do. And then I'm going to come back at the end and we'll talk about how we're bringing it to people a little differently these days. Madam Burke.
All right.
Have some fun.
You're going to have to
Push the right arrow.
Okay, thank you. Hi, guys. I'm so excited to talk to you today, but I want you to please feel free to talk back to me. Like, jump in with questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, anything along the way. I don't want to be just talking one way, so feel free to stop me and ask anything you want to ask. Can you hear me okay? Okay, cool. So the first thing I wanted to share with you today was we went through a lot of soul searching as we formed our new brand identity. One of the things that's wonderful about choosing the name Freeform, is inherent in its name is an expansiveness, right? We are free of form. We are lots and lots of things. But when you're buying television shows, you need to be more narrowly focused than that. You need some brand filters. You can't be everything to everyone. Some, sort of general entertainment networks do that. Broadcast networks do that. But in basic cable, you fare better when you have a brand identity. And we wanted to make sure that ours was clear and representative in the shows we on the development team were buying. So we spent a lot of time looking at the shows that were already on, right? I'm going to sit, so much more comfortable. And what were the things they had in common? We have some shows on the air that are kind of very traditional multi-camera comedies, like Young and Hungry and Baby Daddy, which do actually very, very well for us with young audiences. And then we have some, as you guys know, show like Pretty Little Liars. Those things actually have some things in common thematically. And so we isolated those, we broke them down. Not only they define our shows, but they also differentiate us from other youth brands in the culture, like a CW and an MTV, for example. Each which have their own unique identities. So what we think makes a show Freeform is we focus on youth and emerging identity, really in our protagonists and our main characters. And what's great about that is, when entertainment gets it right, stories about young people tend to be incredibly universal, right? So if you look at gigantic franchises like Star Wars or a show like Friends, those are about a kind of narrow age range in terms of who the protagonists are, the main characters in those vehicles, but their experiences are incredibly universal. We are unashamed to inspire. We are a part of the Walt Disney Company, and we really value that as part of our brand identity. We are not MTV. We tend to not even really chase the same shows as they do. They tend to be, as you guys know, a little bit more cynical in their content. They're just going for a different vibe than we are, and we sort of kind of love and embrace that we love to be emotional and we love to be hopeful. We are really proud of our diversity and inclusivity. We were literally Tom just accepted an award from Outfest a couple weeks ago, where we were given something called the Corporate Trailblazer Award for having such a history of being inclusive, particularly in this case of LGBTQ issues and characters. We've been very, very progressive historically in reflecting a culture that is ever changing and ever more diverse, and we're going to continue to do that. Our content is made to be shared. We are the #1 most social network. We have an incredibly progressive group of people who never sleep, who are constantly pushing our content out over social platforms. And what our audience has come to expect and love is that they can directly engage with our talent. We actually put our talent through social networking training. If you are going to star in a show on Freeform, you need to know how to tweet and how to live tweet during the shows and how to post to Instagram. And our fans love it, and they feel more connected than fans on other channels. And then we, are proud to say, at our best, we bravely entertain. And what that means is we value fearlessness. We value continuing to try to be groundbreaking, to go where others haven't gone before. It pushes us to take big swings. We don't always, when you take big swings, you don't always get home runs. But this is a tradition that we are proudly continuing, and we hopefully will not play it safe anytime in the near future. So one thing, I'm sure you guys have read this phrase if you're interested in or paying attention to what's going on in the TV landscape, but a term we use a lot now is called peak TV. We are in a time of peak television, more channels, more streaming services, and more shows than ever before. So one thing in our evolution from ABC Family to Freeform that became very important was adopting what we call blockbuster strategy. It's a strategy that our partners over at the movie studio adopted a couple of years ago that has proven very successful for them. And we are adopting that also. And what that means is it's no longer good business. The landscape is just too competitive to put on a kind of well-meaning, well-produced show and hope that it catches fire. It is too hard in this competitive landscape to do that. So we really focus and work hand in hand with our partners in marketing to figure out from concept to air how we can make something as loud and robust as possible for the audience. And a couple of the strategies therein, we look for known IP. A show we launched last January with the rebrand called Shadowhunters, which is based on the Mortal Instruments book series. Do you guys remember that? City of Bones, City of Fire, City of Glass, City of Ashes, many cities. But huge book series, second only really to Harry Potter, sold 33 million copies worldwide. And that really helped us launch Shadowhunters last January as a known quantity, and it became actually the biggest launch we'd ever had in the history of the channel, and it's now our second highest rated show behind Pretty Little Liars in its first season. Also, we just launched our highest rated unscripted show in our history called Ben and Lauren, Happily Ever After, ? If you are fans of The Bachelor, which I was not, but I'm a big fan of this couple, we launched the first ever Bachelor after series, and it's a docuseries that chronicles this young couple as they try to figure out if they can actually be a real couple, having been born of reality television. And because it was based on The Bachelor, and there's 9 million people in Bachelor Nation, I know some of you are closet Bachelor, it helped us launch that show very successfully. Cosmo's up here because we are going to launch a show next summer, as yet untitled. Right now we're calling it Issues, which is a little bit boring, so if you have any title suggestions, let me know. And it is based on the inner workings of actually Cosmopolitan magazine. Joanna Coles, who is the editor-in-chief and now the chief content officer at Hearst, brought us really her story and the stories of the young people that work, particularly the young women, although it's really the young workforce that work in this magazine as it transforms itself from what was formerly just sort of a naughty, kind of dismissible magazine to a kind of sneakily feminist powerhouse. It's actually the #1 women's magazine in the world. And being partners with Cosmopolitan and having that known IP behind it will help us launch as the stars of the show, and the content will be featured heavily, not just in Cosmopolitan, but in 17 and Marie Claire and all the Hearst publications, which is cool. We have a show launching in April behind the final season of Pretty Little Liars from a very famous young talent named Bella Thorne, who's quite big on Instagram, was actually born of the Disney Channel and has starred in a couple of pretty successful feature films. We don't do a ton of talent-driven development, but she partnered with Marlene King, who is the creative force behind Pretty Little Liars, to bring us a show called Famous in Love. I'll show you a clip in a bit. Kind of a female entourage. Be careful what you wish for story about breaking into young Hollywood and the perils therein. And then we have a show I'll discuss a little bit later from producer Andy Samberg, who, when we launch it, will work very, very hard using his fame and social media platforms to help us push the show out to the audience. And then something we call baller concepts, just because it makes us laugh. A show called Beyond, which I'll show you a trailer in a bit, which is a big idea from Tim Kring, who's the creator of Heroes, David Icke, the creator of executive producer of Battlestar Galactica. It's about a young man who wakes up from a coma that he was mysteriously put in for 12 years, and the discovery of what exactly happened to him while he was in it. It's got a little bit of Stranger Things in it. We bought it before Stranger Things. It's actually the first thing Tom and I bought. These things take a long time to get to air. This has a really cool visual landscape unlike anything we've ever done before. It's just a big, big idea that will come to the air in January. And then last, The Deep. This is an image from a show that we just finished producing about killer mermaids. Mm-hmm. And it's really terrifying and good. And what it does is really upend the idea of mermaids and turn that, what we think was sort of, repressive mythology on its head to become a story of really female empowerment. All right, now let's watch some TV, right? Yes, question.
Can I just ask, how do you ensure that you have like a vibrant flow of projects to choose from, or how competitive is the space for concepts like this or IP?
Deeply, more competitive than ever, as there are more services than ever. I mean, we compete on a daily basis with Netflix. I'd say, when I got there 2 years ago, I would have said probably MTV and the CW, other youth brands in the television landscape. Now we compete with Netflix. TNT is chasing young women. As Tom spoke, we are, our core audience is young women. Our average viewer is a 26, 27-year-old woman. So we tend to look for concepts that we think will be appealing to that core audience and yet bring in other people, and it's getting tougher and tougher. We compete with Hulu on a daily basis now, and also like YouTube Red is in the marketplace chasing similar content. Did that answer the question? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just thinking from like an organizational perspective, how you make sure you have the options to choose from.
Right.
How do you go out and like sell? Why should TV show go to you as opposed to another network?
Well, it's tough to compete with Netflix because they, in their business model is they go straight to series on most things. And the cable model is we usually start with a script. And in the case of scripted programming, so it's tough.
Hey, Karey, we do 1 minute on how does the show get made? Pitch to pilot. I'm just not sure the vocabulary is familiar.
Sure. Do you care about that? Oh, okay. Yeah. I guess, we have to sell ourselves as a nurturing home for creative content. And I would just to answer the specifics of that question, I think the other thing, how we sell ourselves, what's really fun right now, it's a good time to sell ourselves because the creative community is excited about Freeform. They're excited that we sort of shed the ABC family image and we are creating an environment where kind of anything can happen. So that we really sell that, and it seems to be working. But just quickly to Tom's point, we have a development team of 4 executives, a diverse group, and it's their job to ensure that there's a pipeline and that's on the scripted side of content that is always at the ready for us to choose from. We also have an unscripted team that's small, 2-3 executives there, and it's their job to create a pipeline that's ongoing of unscripted programming. On the scripted side, we generally buy ideas. We generally buy verbal pitches from writers who come in and tell a story, talk about characters, and share something that they want to create. Sometimes we buy a finished script. Sometimes we buy a piece of film. But for the most part, we buy an idea, and then we commission a script. We pay a writer to write that idea. Oftentimes, that idea comes with producers already attached. And then once we are ready to go into production on something, we take sort of the top of the pile of that pipeline. There's a team of us, including Tom, that evaluates the material and decides what we think is the best crop to go forward with. And we make a pilot, generally. On the unscripted side, we will spend less money. We do something called a sizzle reel, which is almost like a trailer. And then we will go from that to series. In some cases, we go straight to series from a finished script. We're doing that on a Marvel project right now. We have a script that we love, and for a drama from them, would be our first drama with Marvel. And we'll go straight to series off that. But that's generally the path.
I'd be curious, like, what is it about the Netflix business model that economically makes it viable for them to commission a series right out of the gate, whereas a major television producer will commission a script and choose the best scripts and then commission the production? Any sense of, like, is that just a preference, or is there an actual economic difference in the models that sort of supports that?
Well,
you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Either way.
No, I'm curious what you had to say.
We'll give two answers. We'll find out if we agree with ourselves. In general, it's not clear their economic model works yet for them, but they are.
That was what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, the jury's really still out whether or not they can sustain that economic model. They are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on original content right now.
They're cash flow negative, right? And they're growing, and they're investing against the growth. The question is, how long does that growth keep going? And no one knows, right? They have projections that are unrealized yet. It's clearly tapping out in the United States. It's had mixed results abroad. Some months are better than others. If they don't grow a whole lot more, they will not be able to keep sustaining this. But the other sort of separate answer is we get paid by viewership, and they don't, right? Because we really ultimately, all television networks other than streaming services and HBO, get paid by advertising on top of our subscription fees. These guys really care whether you churn out or not. So it's more like a magazine subscription. So as long as they give you enough stuff to keep paying, they're happy. And so for them, it's better to get a few people to be excited about one thing than it is to get a lot of people lukewarm about a lot of things. Because really, they have to have one thing that you'll keep paying your bill for. And so it's a slightly different way of amassing audience and amassing money from that audience.
Right. We're going through oh, go ahead.
I have two quick questions. Thank you for being here. So first, I'm curious about the decision to show Ben and Lauren on Freeform instead of on traditional ABC. Is that just to really kind of move a lot of those people over to Freeform? And then secondly, with shows like Baby Daddy and Young and Hungry, I see them as pretty different from some of the new shows that you just described, which have more of kind of like fantasy, sci-fi kind of theme. And I'm curious, like, as you guys kind of go on this path of developing new shows that are more like that, are you going to shelve the like multi-camera comedy concept? Because it seems like also some of the new shows are more similar to some of the shows that are on the CW that kind of also have that similar fantasy, sci-fi, young adult theme. So how will you see yourselves as continually differentiating from them?
Great questions. First one is ABC actually passed on Ben and Lauren. And they said to Warner Horizon, who produces the show, go to Freeform. It felt to ABC like a cable show, but they said, if you're going to take it out in basic cable, please take it to Freeform first. And so we heard it, and for us, it was a slam dunk and a way to really take advantage of the synergy with our sister channel. And we worked very, very well with them. They helped us launch it in big ways. So it really was theirs to have. It didn't feel big enough. It didn't feel broadcast to them. I think they wish they had it now. But they're very happy with the results. And so if we get it right, the plan will be that we are on when Bachelor is down, between Bachelor, Bachelorette, and Bachelor in Paradise, if you care. They have a couple of windows where they are not on with this massive franchise that's been on for 20 years. It's shocking how successful it is. So we would come up with the docu-series in between, when they're down. So essentially continuing the franchise across the channel, which was actually a goal of ours at DA. The Walt Disney Company loves their acronyms. Another one we live with every day is called DATG, which is the Disney ABC Television Group. We are part of that group. And a goal that we had set out for ourselves a couple of years ago was to try to find content that could live across ABC, Freeform, and the Disney channels. Like how cool is that? So this is actually an initial experiment of that. It's working pretty well. The second question is a very astute one. There is a tonal mismatch between where we've been and where we're headed in some cases. Young and Hungry and Baby Dad are actually kind of like body racy shows in their content, but in their construct, they sort of feel like Disney Channel, a little bit grown up. We're not going to shelve them, and we're not going to stop doing multicam, because multicam, which is how the multi-camera comedy is shot in front of an audience, it's a very good business, and we'd like to stay in that business. we have I think I'm not talking about it, but yeah, we're just about to produce a multi-camera comedy pilot called Brown Girls, about super funny female buddy comedy about a very second-generation, non-traditional East Indian, very assimilated, Americanized young woman, and a very traditional Indian woman. And we're just in the middle of casting that right now. And that ideally would launch behind Young and Hungry, and hopefully continue for many years. But we are doing more single-camera comedy. I'll show you a clip from, that's the Andy Samberg show. As it feels a little bit more Broad City. And ideally, we're creating an environment where both can live. And then we'll continue to, as we've had success in genre dramas, like with Shadowhunters and hopefully with Beyond. The reason we took those on, just if you're curious, was we're very successful with our movie packages. We're the home of Hunger Games, Twilight, and the Harry Potter franchise until 2018. And I think it came from Bob Iger, who said to Tom before I got there, you have all this big sort of, world-creating, fantasy-based, movie franchises that you run. Let's develop our own saga series, really, which is what we call them, that we can own. So we went after the IP underneath the Mortal Entrance book series, and hopefully that'll be the first of many successful launches like that. But we won't exclusively go that. We will always still continue to be the home for relationship dramas. And we actually consider PLL one of those. Shows like The Fosters, Switch to Birth. We'll hopefully be able to, have a schedule that affords us the ability to do both. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I was just wondering, looking down the line, like right now, it's good to be in peak TV. Like there's a lot of providers like Hulu, Netflix that compete over content, so they're willing to pay a bunch for licensing. So 10, 15 years down the road, especially with the cord cutters and the cord nevers and all these trends, do you think that you can replace that revenue with an over-the-top service, or how does it look like? How are you guys going to monetize in the future?
Yes.
Well, no one's really sure, but
right.
I will show you at the end. Our plan is to try to preserve what we call stacking rights, which is we've bought not just the linear rights, but the nonlinear rights, so that we can create a neighborhood under our brand where if you don't watch it in the first season, you can keep watching it. And every piece of data we have suggests that people are watching for a long time. They're finding series sometimes years after they've gone on the air. We're trying to do it what we're calling a skinny ad package, so that it will be ad supported but much less interruptive. And that's a lot of the work that we're doing right now, is how do you make advertising still provide the service it provides, which is give you exposure stuff you might want to buy and give you content for free, which is a really nice thing to have in your life without it being quite so intrusive. And so that's the model we're playing with, and we'll see.
We'd like to create an ecosystem where if you want to watch a Freeform show, you go to one of the Freeform platforms to watch it. And we, more of our audience watches Baby Daddy and Young and Hungry on Netflix than they watch on Freeform. That's a sort of good short-term business to be in because we get good money from Netflix, but we would rather have our audience know that if they want to see those shows, our shows, you come to our platforms from that content. That's really where we're headed.
I'm going to do one commercial, which is download the Freeform app. There's Karey mentioned before, our first short form series we really loved launched yesterday, I think, today.
Yeah, yesterday.
Called Party Girl. It'll take you an hour to watch it. It's like 10 episodes, 6 each. It's fun. It feels comedically like a different tone for who we are and what we are. And it's, as we say, in front of the wall. You don't need to sign into anything.
You don't need to authenticate or have cable. How many of you have cable? I'm curious. More than I would think.
Yeah.
All right.
Your parents have until you watched it.
Right. Yes. Yes. Party Girl is about a birthday party princess. Sometimes she has other characters that she plays, but it's super irreverent and tweaks the mythology and the image of the princess culture quite a bit. So we're having fun with it. And the app really is quite good, I have to say. It's worth downloading, and we're the #1 entertainment
we'll show you something
app in the iTunes store. It's good. Okay. Oh yeah, you're talking about it later. Okay. So why is this up here? Oh, Shadowhunters. So I talked about this earlier. This is just this show has really taken off. It's been off the air for a long time. We're relaunching it, season 2 in January. And our stars were just featured on the covers of 17 magazine, and they looked pretty, so we put them up there. Oh, am I showing a clip?
If you want to.
Oh.
If you don't.
Do you guys want to see a clip of season 2 of Shadowhunters? So I'll talk a little about this, actually, because it's an interesting case study. It was our biggest launch in our history, but we had gone straight to series on this, and what we learned fairly quickly was the episodes they just weren't coming in as strong as we wanted them to. It just wasn't good enough. And we actually started to notice the audience fall off as the season went on. Towards the end of our first order, which was 13, we popped back up again. But going into a season 2, we made some very tough decisions and fired the showrunner, and which Walking Dead also did after the first season. So it's not a recipe for disaster, but it was just too important a franchise to us to not have it be great. So we were very, very hard to make season 2 better, and the good news is it is, and this is a trailer that shows some stuff from season 2, I think.
I'm worried it's not happening, but push another arrow, see what happens.
Push the arrow? Oh, see, I suck at this. Here we go. Try this again. Nope. Sorry, guys. Here, let's try one more time.
Let it be for a second.
We are at war. Valentine is raising a new army. And one of our own has joined him.
We both want the same thing. To save this world.
If you kill him, you kill a part of me.
You don't have to protect me anymore.
You think you understand this world, but you don't.
You really think love will keep you from hurting your family and friends?
Jace is not your blood.
He's closer than blood. I don't want to hurt anybody.
That's too bad, because we do.
In Kento.
The worst vampire ever.
Everyone says Valentine is the monster, but you...
When things get crazy, don't push me away.
That's because I love you, son.
Your brother would only leave death and destruction.
I have had enough of your mind games.
What is with that guy?
Shadowhunters, coming in January 2017 on Freeform.
So that's a sneak peek of the coming season. And the reason Shadowhunters, to go back to those brand filters in the beginning, is a Freeform show to us is, it's a big saga. It's got a bunch of beautiful young people in it who happen to be vampires and werewolves and angels and demons. But at its core, they're young adults fighting a system that is completely screwed up and sort of a power construct that was put in place by their parents' generation, and they are fighting back against it. It's also very much about a class system, and their instinct to band together to try to get rid of this old archaic class system. So at its core, it's got, disguised as a big sci-fi fantasy show, it's got very core values that we think are really relevant today. All right, next up is Beyond, which I alluded to earlier. I'm just going to show you the trailer and tell you one interesting thing about this, just speaking to the way that we need to rethink how we get our content to our audience and the way that they want to watch it is when we launch Beyond in January, we are going to put all the episodes up on our app and on Hulu and all of our SVOD services at the same time. It's an incredibly bingeable show. And what we found, we have a lot of research that tells us, young audiences don't want to watch something unless they can watch it all at the same time. And look at your guys' own viewing behavior. It's tough to wait week after week after week. And some shows really lend themselves to that, but we're going to do that. We will be on a linear channel every week, but we believe with a show like this that is really high quality, that's very bingeable, will have word of mouth, so people will catch up with it as it continues to air on a weekly basis, but we also want to make it available for the first time ever. It'll be an experiment, and we feel pretty positive about it, all at once. So here is a look at Beyond. Is it loud
Where am I?
See you soon.
you were asleep for a long time.
To call Holden's awakening a phenomenon would be an understatement.
Don't try and play catch up all at once. You got plenty of time.
You should come with me.
What all this town's talking about?
Hi.
Hey,
I'm...
Holden. I know. They're coming for you.
Look, I brought you here to warn you. Warn me about what?
I know who you are. More importantly, I know what you can do. Show me.
I'm not who you think I am!
While you were in your coma, your mind traveled.
Where?
I don't want any of this!
Your memories are trying to force their way out.
What are you?
You spent 12 years in that place. It's a beautiful world filled with more wonder and magic than you'll see in your lifetime. But it's also extremely dangerous.
How did you know that?
Come with me.
Beyond, the 2-hour series premiere, Monday, January 2nd on Freeform. Then binge the full season on the Freeform app.
See, now you gotta download the app, right? I don't know what I'm talking about next. Oh, okay. Well, another clip, more TV. Famous in Love is the show I referenced earlier from Marlene King, who wanted to move beyond Pretty Little Liars. And as you saw, we just announced that show will have its final season in the spring. She really felt the story was done being told. And we were happy to kind of let them go out on top before they kind of were running on the fumes of lots of years of chasing A's and B's and C's. So for Marlene's, this is actually based on a successful book called Famous in Love. And it's the story of a young woman who is a college student in Los Angeles who has she's an econ student, but she has a secret desire to be an actress. She goes on a big open call audition and actually gets cast in essentially what's kind of the next Twilight or Harry Potter, and her life gets turned upside down. So here's just I think, is this a trailer or it's the opening scene? I don't remember.
Trailer. I don't know.
There you go. Oh, this is the first scene.
All the leaves are brown and the sky is gray.
I'll have to ask you to put your seat back for landing.
Oh, of course.
And I'm sorry, I hope it's not a bother.
What's your name?
Cindy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ready, Miss Thompson?
Let's do this.
Why'd Rainer walk off the set? Was it because of Jake? Or his bestie Jordan? My money's on the sensitive one. The college boy?
Welcome home, Miss Townsend.
Thanks, Derek.
So then when you come back from commercial, or not commercial, because we are now not going to straight to commercial that early in our first episodes of shows anymore, the show then takes place 6 months prior. That's after she's hit instant fame in this movie and dealing with it. And I'll tell you a secret. in development of Pretty Little Liars, which I was not around for, but the story's kind of known in our halls. The company behind it called Alloy, which is a big YA book company, and Pretty Little Liars was based on a book series from Alloy. They called it Big Dumb Fun. And they achieved it. That was really what they were going for. They achieved it. It's what Marlene King does very, very well. This has all the twists and turns of Pretty Little Liars, but set in a big wish fulfillment Hollywood world. So this is the next chapter of Big Dumb Fun for us. Don't tell them I said that. Okay, next clip is Alone Together. This is the comedy I was telling you about from Andy Samberg. Oh, yes, go ahead.
So kind of given this wide portfolio of shows, and one I know like Recovery Road, which kind of hits like an even more challenging topic. Can you talk a little bit about some of the analytics that go into it in terms of like whether you like keep a show based on like customer feedback and like viewer feedback, or can you talk a little bit more about the analytics that support such a wide portfolio?
Yes. I'll try to give a short answer. We look at a lot of factors when we're analyzing whether to make a show, whether to continue with the show. We look at ratings. We look at not just linear ratings, but digital ratings, and more we look at long-term ratings, right? We used to just look at overnight ratings, Live +3 ratings. Now we look primarily at Live +7 and even Live +35, which a lot of people call the tail, because as particularly young audiences are not watching day and date. You know, fully half of our audience for a show like Pretty Little Liars or Ben and Lauren doesn't watch when it's on the channel. So we really have to wait and be more patient with ratings analytics. We also look at audience composition, you know, how diverse is an audience, how passionate is an audience, what's the gender makeup, factors like that go into our decision making. In a show like, we just renewed for season 3 a show called Stitchers, which was kind of what we would call on the bubble. It performed pretty well for us, but it's not a very buzzy show. You hear about it very much. It's got a very interesting character at the center who is she got a lot of like STEM support. She's a hacker, sort of gets along better with computers than people, and she's a very empowering heroine. And one of the things that went into the analysis of whether or not to bring that show back for season 3 was a really rabid fan base that came out to say, you've got to bring the show back. It really, really matters to me. We got letters from all over the world from young women who said, you have no idea how much this character means to me and how she's showing me that I can go on and have a career in science and technology, and that I could do something like this. It's inspirational to us. And that we factored that in to the decision to bring back a season 3. So there's emotional factors, there's financial factors. We're just renewing another season of a show called The Fosters, which is going into its 5th season, and shows get more expensive as they go along. And we've had to do a pretty big financial analysis about how to continue to keep affording that show. A show like Recovery Road, which we loved, we absolutely loved it. We thought it was about something so important, beautifully produced, was fairly low rated, although we did start to see ratings climb a bit later in its run, but there wasn't a financial analysis that supported bringing it back. And we didn't really have a robust fan base for it, and so it ended up sort of just going into the column of things we didn't feel like we could afford to keep going on.
Hey, Burke,
yeah.
We've got like 4 more minutes. Should we show this clip because it's a fun way to end, or do you want to do something else?
Oh, yeah, let's do that. Unless you want to talk about digital.
I don't think so.
Okay, all right, I'll show you this clip, which is sort of where we're headed in comedy. This is from Lonely Island and 2 completely unknown comics, Benji and Esther. And the promise of this show, why it's called Alone Together, is it will explore a purely and infinitely, endlessly platonic relationship. We call it that unicorn of relationships, right? An actual platonic relationship between a man and a woman that will not, I promise you, get romantic, or will they or won't they?
Hello. saved you from a walk of shame.
I'll have you know that the walk of shame is an anti-feminist construct. Okay, do I look like I'm in shame?
You're not a feminist. You're just too lazy to walk.
I wasn't too lazy to smash with a guy last night who's basically Ryan Gosling.
Hey, Esther! You forgot your night guard.
Man, Ryan Gosling really let himself go.
Chubby hairy guys make me feel skinny and pretty like Rachel McAdams. Throw it to me.
I don't want to touch it. It's moldy.
It's not mold. It's just pesto.
We had barbecue last night.
Just throw it down. You really have to nudge him to touch stuff. I didn't have an orgasm.
All right.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Well, that was a short walk of shame. Oh my God, you're putting that back in your mouth?
That's where it goes. Relax, the sprinklers were just on.
I thought you just wear that at night.
I've been day grinding. I'm stressed about money and Boko Haram.
Boko Haram is not in East Hollywood. You're fine.
You don't know that. It could be anywhere.
Text me, Esther.
See ya. Nice to meet you. I'm Benji.
I'm sorry, dude. This is awkward.
He's just my friend.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, just platonic friends. I'm not a threat or anything.
All right, stop talking to me like
See ya.
Yeah, see you, man.
Can we go to the juice place on 3rd? I want to do a cleanse. I'm feeling high off my one-night stand.
You know, baby voice doesn't work on me. I didn't just sleep with you. You want to ask me like an adult? Let's use adult voice with me, okay?
Can we please go to the juice place on 3rd?
You're doing baby voice. Try again.
Cleansing will make me feel skinny and pretty.
That's the opening of Alone Together. Coming, I don't know when.
Coming soon. I think we're out of time. If any of you have other questions, we're happy to answer, but I want to keep you past your lunch break.